Lucas said it's not over.
It's over.
My guy's telling us. Welcome to the Sport Wrap Show with Ashwin Bedi, making sure you're updated on the latest sport news. Something interesting that just happened. About 35 minutes ago, Rafael Nadal just announced that because he's going to be competing at the Olympics with Carlos Alcaraz, he is not going to be performing in any championships leading up until then. He wants to make sure that his last Olympics is his best. And, you can't hate him for that. But for now, let's figure out what Namibia's Desert Jewels are doing as they do continue to do their best to make us proud, swinging into the hit list. Now, the Australia First Nations Invitational team, historically the strongest of the 6 competing teams in the tournament, beat Namibia's Debmarine Desert Jewels 45-41 in the Pacific Netball Series. The Namibians have one pool match remaining against Fiji on Friday at 11 a.m. Namibian time. We certainly wish the ladies all the best in their endeavor at that Pacific tournament. Now, we're going to swing over to Namibia and, dare I say, Africa's only Formula One reporter, presenter. Her name is Irene Marie van der Walt, and she talks about the latest Formula One regulations, giving us her opinion.
The FIA has released their 2026 regulations for Formula One this week. This is a hotly awaited piece of information that fans have really been waiting for, to see if Red Bull dominance will continue in 2026 and beyond. But before we get to 2026, let's talk a bit about what's happening now in 2024. Carlos Sainz's contract has been up for grabs since the beginning of the season after Lewis Hamilton was announced to be taking his seat from next year, and he's been quite candid about needing a seat for next year. The Formula One photographer Kim Illman has, however, recently said that he believes there's about a 99% chance that Carlos Sainz will sign with Williams. Now, one thing that I think Carlos Sainz fans and people who are keeping an eye on Carlos Sainz's dealings into next year, one thing that I think those groups of people will have to accept is that any deal that Carlos Sainz signs will be a downgrade. This is not up for debate. There was the rumors that he would go back to Red Bull, but he's been at Red Bull. He hasn't done what Red Bull wanted him to do, evidently, because they let him go. So he went to Red Bull. That didn't work out. The other option is McLaren, which, they have one of the strongest driver pairings on the grid, undoubtedly. So there's very little reason for them to kick one of their very talented drivers out of their seat to get Carlos Sainz into the seat, So then third strongest team on the grid is Ferrari, which he has to leave. So all the other teams that he could potentially be signing with, they come after Ferrari on the pecking order. So anything he does will be a downgrade. But why him signing with Williams is interesting is precisely because of their team principal. Williams got a new team principal last year in James Vowles. If you keep up with the jokes in the Formula One circles, you will remember this man as Valtteri. It's James. So James Vowles has a very deep engineering background, and that's what he's bringing to Williams. The former team principal of Williams, obviously a legacy team principal because she's from the Williams family, she brought an immense passion, but did not bring the engineering background that James Vowles is able to bring to Williams. Remember that James Vowles, in the beginning of last year, took over a team that notoriously used an Excel sheet to keep a catalogue of all its moving parts. So, not the best stance for a Formula One team to have, and James Vowles is tasked with turning that around. Williams has an immense legacy in Formula One in the earlier years, in the last century. I feel very old saying the last century, but in the last century, Williams has a very strong history in Formula One. James Vowles is the man tasked with bringing that strong history and turning it into a strong present and a strong future for Williams. So that's why him signing with Williams could potentially be his best move, because Williams has a lot of development possibilities on the cards, and they have the right team and the right man at the steer of their team to make that development possible. Driving alongside somebody like Alexander Albon, that's honestly probably the best option for him. Williams, in the next couple of years, I don't think it's going to be a surprise smack bam, here's Williams. It will probably be a more gradual progression, but I wouldn't be surprised if Williams surprises us in the next couple of years, and if they become a very solid midfield contender within the coming years. But that all depends on how they deal with the 2026 regulations, which have now been made public. So aside from, the little tidbits that are going to make Formula One safer for the drivers, a very interesting development in the 2026 regulations, to me, what stands out is basically the reimagining of the DAS system. So if you've been following Formula One for a couple of years, you may remember Mercedes introducing what's called the DAS system in 2020. It was very, very quickly outlawed for 2021, but it seems we're bringing it back in 2026. So how the Mercedes DAS system worked essentially is that the driver had their wheels facing forward in a normal Formula One car way, as you would expect from a Formula One car. And once they pulled on their steering wheel, the wheels tipped inward. The front of the wheels tipped inward a little bit. And what that does is it gives the car faster cornering speed. So what the 2026 regulations have now done is they've introduced a Z mode and an X mode. And Z mode gives you faster cornering speed and X mode gives you faster straight line speed, which is exactly what DAS was supposed to do. The only difference is that Z mode and X mode in the 2026 regulations enables faster cornering speed and faster straight line speed by allowing changing to the front wing instead of the front wheels. But that's the only noticeable difference, and you've used a different equation to get to exactly the same answer. And aside from that, the cars are also expected to be about 30 kilograms lighter in 2026, and the FIA says that these are, quote unquote, the world's most efficient engines. So they have nearly 300% more battery available to them, but this is only because there will now be expected a 50-50 split between the traditional combustion engine and the battery engine. So in terms of power, we will also see the entire removal of the MGU-H, which is part of the electrical engine. There are also changes to the regulations in how big the cars need to be. So for the chassis, the wheelbase loses 200 millimeters, and the width of the car, the overall width of the car, loses 100 millimeters. The minimum weight of the cars is also set to change. It's going to be 768 kilograms, which accounts for a 722 kilogram car and driver, and then roughly 46 kilograms for the tires. So on aerodynamics, we're talking again about Z mode and X mode, and then there will also be a 3-element active rear wing. The lower beam of the rear wing will also be removed, and the end plate design will be simplified. And then another one that's going to change the aesthetics of Formula One cars a little bit backwards is the removal of the wheel brows. There will also be a lower power diffuser, which will reduce reliance on the ground effects and the stiff and low setups that we've seen in a couple of years, which would likely mean an entire new era of Formula One cars. This era of Formula One cars are known as the ground effects cars. Ground effects is everything to these cars. So reducing the reliance on ground effects is likely going to usher in a new era for Formula One cars. But there's still a lot to be seen and a lot to be said about the potential developments within these regulations, and the full regulations have not yet been made available. So we'll have to see what they do in 2026, and obviously all of these are aimed at more nimble cars that can, make it easier for them to pass one another. Smaller cars that on tighter tracks, on narrower tracks, the cars can easier pass each other, which has been a very, very big topic of discussion within Formula One circles of late. So we may see the ushering in of an entirely new era, and hopefully an era that fans will like more.
All right, it's time for us to zoom in. I had a conversation with Onkos Valley spokesperson, Mr. Inocencio Verde, about their 30,000 capacity stadium that they are saying they are just about to build. It was a very interesting chat. So do enjoy that interview. And then right after that, Adi Hochad is going to take us home. From me, Ashwin Berry. Cheers. You're with Ashwin Berry in the Sport Rap studio, and joining me is Mr. Inocencio Verde, who is the spokesperson for Onkos Valley as well as the MD for RTO Housing Namibia. How are you, sir?
No, I'm very well, thank you.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you so
So
much.
there's been a huge buzz around Namibia since Onkos Valley announced the stadium, and we'd all love to know what it's all about. So let's dig in. Can you elaborate on the vision behind the development of the Onkos Valley Sports Village and Stadium, and how it aligns with your broader goals for Namibia?
No, thank you so much. So when we speak of Onkos Valley vision, actually we want to be at the forefront of the African Renaissance by providing solutions that will elevate human dignity and decency through the power of ownership. That is basically our broader vision as a group of companies. And to that effect, we do not only intend to basically just build Namibia, but we like to participate across Africa. It is very important for us. It is very important that after 33, 34 years of independence, the investments that government have made to its people, students, learners, which many years ago we were, I think a government needs to recoup from that. What we also say is that I think it's enough of thinking, and it's now time for action. So
Yes.
this is what we're talking about. And when we look at the sports infrastructure in the country per se, you will agree with me that we are lagging behind. And given the fact that we are so big at solving for X in our mode of operation, I think the sports stadium is one that speaks to sort of, the vision of the broader group, and of course also looking at the country's vision as far as sports is concerned.
That's actually what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind undertaking this huge investment? What were you looking at?
What we were looking at? Well, basically, what you need to understand is that we are one of the greatest African countries, that we have. In terms of infrastructure, Namibia has done so much, that we are basically second to none in terms of Africa. If you look at the road infrastructure that we have created, I think Namibia, not I think, but it is a fact that Namibia has sort of very important road infrastructure that other countries can only emulate and wish and aspire to have. And for a long time now, when we talk of the sports infrastructure per se, what we have realized is that, look, because we are lagging behind, there is a challenge. And are we going to cry about the challenge, or are we going to assist in providing this solution to the broader country, or to the broader And so we were there, and we're saying, look, in terms of Windhoek, and mind you, when you look back, the late president, His Excellency Dr. Geinkop, he did postpone the census. Yeah, I think the census was delayed by a year or two, and now the census, the preliminary results are out. And what we have seen is that Windhoek is now housing just close to 500,000 people.
Yes.
Okay, so Windhoek housing 500,000 people, we have also seen that people living on the western side of the B1, which is your A1 today, they actually form 76% of Windhoek's population.
Wow.
Now, it's a fact. We are not now...
We're not speculating.
we're not speculating
No.
anymore. So what you need to understand that it is so important that you need to understand the numbers that you're working with. If that aspect is missed, then you're going to have a problem.
Nothing works.
So census was delayed. We now picked up that this is what we have. Where are most of your sports infrastructure in the country? They're basically on the 24% side of the B1. Whereas the majority of your people are on the other side. And also what we have seen in Windhoek, if you look at just the landscape of Windhoek, for you to be able to develop some of this infrastructure, they become sort of very expensive on the side, on the eastern side of B1.
Yes.
And Windhoek, in terms of its growth, it is now focused to the northwestern corridor of the northwestern corridor of Windhoek. So that is where basically your affordable investments and infrastructure can be developed. That is basically your only.
Yes, that's your only real option.
That is the only real option, because if you look at it, if you look at Windhoek, it's surrounded by mountains. The side of Simbabasia and Prosperita, you cannot develop mega infrastructure given the aquifer that we have. So if there is any pollution that happens on that side, the repercussions are going to be severe. So your natural gradient of flow is towards the western corridor, and this is basically where Ongos Valley is situated.
Yes.
And I think given the space limitations that we also have within town, it is just economical.
It just makes sense.
It just makes sense for us to build the stadium.
Tell us more then about the architecture. I understand we're looking at a 30,000 capacity stadium.
Definitely, yes. Yes. So as far as the stadium is concerned, look, we don't only plan for today. We plan for the future to come. Sustainability. So we look at 20, 30 years from now. And in terms of the architecture, the stadium is designed in such a fact that should the population grow and should there be excessive demand,
we can expand.
We can be able to expand and build onto the what you call the stands, so that we can accommodate enough people.
All right.
But the design was made in such a way that it can accommodate basically your international players.
I wanted to ask about that actually. So it's the technical facilities meet FIFA standards.
They do meet FIFA standards. But we had to look into that as well, because you cannot also make such a huge investment and still lag behind or miss some of these crucial standards that we have.
Absolutely.
So it is important that from that planning perspective, all those requirements are met.
All right.
Yeah.
How do you feel that the building of this stadium is going to contribute to the well-being of the ordinary Namibian, and also just economically? You spoke about the numbers. On one end, we're talking 24%. That means on that end, we're talking 76%. You've crunched that down. What does it mean for the ordinary Namibian? Yeah,
I think it's important for us to maybe just go step by step. So if you see the magnitude of the stadium that we envisage to build, and mind you, this stadium will be built in cohesion or in conjunction with government. It can only be. It can only be collaborative. We need to collaborate with government to have such a structure.
Yes.
What we anticipate as a very short-term employment creation that will be created over the 36 months of the construction period, we are talking next to 9,000 people to be employed during the construction.
Wow.
So you can already see the impact that it's going to have basically on the families around this particular area.
Yes.
And of course, there will be need for this number. So it is important from that point of view to say, look, if people can be economically, active, then, a lot of stress can be alleviated.
Yes, yes.
Then you can probably jump onto what impact is it going to have then to the broader country? Because we are just not looking at building, we are also looking at sort of, the sustainability of this particular infrastructure, where we envisage to have approximately more than 300 people that will be employed after it has been completed. So remember, we are not only building a stadium, it's a sports facility with high performance centers where we will probably have to have strategic partnership with institutions of higher learning, where all the sports management can be handled at these particular facilities. It's just what we are going to have now. It's from the lecture halls to the field.
To the field. Wonderful. Because it immediately engages the youth. It creates so much capacity for sports in Namibia. And of course, I think most people are just envisioning seeing the Brave Warriors there. Does this also become the home for the Ongos Football Club? Too soon?
Well, I will confidently tell you, in the meantime, no.
In the meantime, no.
No, we have not decided that.
For now, it's national duty.
For now, it's a national duty. We are looking at ensuring that our national pride is restored. We do not want to have a situation whereby our national team is playing and without supporters.
Without supporters, no, we can't do that.
We have seen it.
Yes.
We have seen it, and it's heartbreaking. And I think, mind you, I can tell you this, Namibia is in a position to even build 5 of these particular stadiums. And at least in the short term, we can focus on building crucial 3.
Yes.
Crucial 3.
Tick those boxes.
We need to tick those boxes. Because it is important that we need to bring in the international clients, international community to make use of these facilities. And I think recently we have just seen that FIFA announced now that they want to bring a change into the whole
the rules,
the rules of playing
home and away games. You're right.
Yes.
Essentially, FIFA said that this was Gianni Infantino, FIFA president, that clubs will now be able to play home and away games in other countries. And I think, you're right. This fits perfectly into such a vision.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that is why it is important that we need to have
infrastructure
that speaks to the requirements of the national and broader community.
And especially, it's also reflective of what we want for the Brave Warriors, which is the very best.
Exactly.
Any few words on how you feel about the potential of this stadium as we close off?
The potential, look, Namibia has got potential. The stadium has got potential because right now, I mean, we have, you know the state of the Independence Stadium. You know the state of the Sam Nujoma Stadium.
Yes.
After Ongos have announced, we now see a lot of other local authorities announcing the construction of other stadiums. And these are things that we want to encourage. But we just don't want people to invest in smaller stuff. But perhaps maybe we need to appreciate that.
Yes.
From this. I mean, the participation of
all the parties of
the industry, to build this infrastructure. Yes. I will tell you this confidently that yes, the stadium has got serious potential. It will be used. The feasibility indicates that is correct. Remember, it's just not soccer. We are looking at netball, basketball, volleyball, netball. So we are looking at all.
Disciplines.
I think we are looking at about a crucial. About 5 sports codes that can participate. And some of those, rugby included.
Yes, of course.
Rugby included. Yes. So, what can we say?
Infinite potential, infinite possibilities.
We have a lot of possibilities for that.
Has construction started?
Not yet.
When does construction start?
So we are sort of finalizing some requirements now. We are still finalizing with government. We hope in the next between 3 and 5 weeks, we should have an answer.
And from there, we're looking at 36 months.
From there, from the breakground.
Yes.
Breaking ground. Yes. Of the stadium. 36 months.
36 months.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you very much. All right. So that was Mr. Inocencio Verde, who is the spokesperson for Ongos Valley, giving us the update on the stadium that they are building. Not for them, not for me, for Namibia.
Thank you.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with cricket news first. It is the Men's T20 Cricket World Cup continuing in the West Indies and in the United States, and the good news for the host, that is the West Indies, they through to the Super 8 stage of the tournament. That was after they beat New Zealand in Trinidad. They beat them by 13 runs. It was the West Indies that scored 149 for the loss of 9 wickets in their allotted 20 overs. Shafane Rutherford was the best batsman with 68 runs. And then New Zealand replied with 136 for the loss of 9 wickets, with Alzari Joseph. He was the best bowler for the West Indies, 4 wickets for 19 runs in 4 overs. Not good news for New Zealand, the loss. That means that they're probably going to fall out of the tournament and not qualify for the Super 8. They need favours from other teams. If Afghanistan beat Papua New Guinea on Friday, then Afghanistan is through to the Super 8, and it will be New Zealand that drop out of the tournament. It will be then Afghanistan and the West Indies through in Group C. Continuing international sports news with golf news, it is the US Open for men that will take place this weekend, and it will start on Thursday, finish on Sunday. It will be played at Pinehurst, and it is world number 1 Scotty Scheffler that will be in the field. And also good news for the organisers is that 3-time US Open winner Tiger Woods also confirmed to play in the tournament. It will be a field of 156 players. 4 South African players will play in the tournament. For Southern African interest, it will be Dean Burmeister that qualified for the tournament. He's currently playing in the Live Golf Initiative. And then also Christian Besaidnout, Eric van Rooyen, and then also the 20-year-old Casey Jarvis that will play the US Open for the first time. And to conclude today's international sports news, it is soccer news, and it's soccer news from Manchester United. Manchester United indicated that the coach Erik ten Hag will stay on as the coach. There was a 2-week review that followed the last game of the season, and it was decided that Erik ten Hag will probably get another 2 years. He's considering a 2-year extension on his contract. Manchester United with not a good season in terms of the English Premier League. They finished 8th on the league, but they finished strongly with the FA Cup win when they beat Manchester City in the final, and with that win they also qualified for Europa League. The club looked to sell some of the current players and also looked to sign new players, and they recently added on management, and it was Gary O'Driscoll that was signed from Arsenal. He's the head of sport medicine now at Manchester United. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk international sport again tomorrow. Goodbye.